A child is dead. 5-year-old Lumka Mketwa had the life suffocated out of her little body in a most undignified and cruel manner at the bottom of a dark pit filled with human waste that her school has as an excuse for a toilet. And just as happened 4 years ago when 5-year-old Michael Komapi died in a similar death in Limpopo, there's finger-pointing and blame-shifting all round. There are still thousands more of these death traps at schools in South Africa, and task teams are once again set to conduct urgent audits to reprioritize budgets and produce plans to deal with this problem. Does this mean anything will change, or is it just about quelling South Africans' fleeting sense of outrage? The Politbureau is now in session. I'm Tula Sizwe Semelane. We want you to be part of the conversation, so have your say on the week's big political developments. Drop us a short WhatsApp video comment throughout the week to the number 082-884-6370. In the Politbureau today, we're joined by Lumka Mketwa, a political analyst, and in the second segment of the show, we'll be joined from our Durban studio by Bukani Mngoma, who is a political and labor analyst. Lumka Mketwa will never get to be a teacher, doctor, scientist, raise a family, travel the world, or whatever it is that she dreamed of doing. Her life has been snuffed out in a society and an education system that thinks it's tolerable, if not acceptable, for children to use pit latrines in 2018.
All South Africans, black and white, must today face and be outraged by the reality that today, 23 years after democracy, we can have the death of the 5-year-old Viwe Jali in a school latrine pit toilet in Bizana. Oliver Tambo was born in Bizana. What will he say to us who bask in the glory of his struggle? If we still fail to protect our children years after Great R. Lena, Michael Komapi died in a similar undignified manner in 2014.
The assumption that we're sitting on gaping toilets and not doing anything is just very unfortunate because it's not true. So the report will tell you how far we've started, where we come from, and how far we are, and what were the future plans moving forward. Because if you say by 2025 I would have eradicated all pit toilets, it means by 2018 you will not have eradicated all of them. But it means you have a plan, right? So it doesn't mean that, because we had said by 2018 these are the targets. So it means we have a plan which is informed by our budgets, it's informed by our other priorities, and then we are moving slowly towards it. But these tragedies are forcing us to say, let's review our plans, and therefore let's prioritize this.
But wait, haven't we heard all of this before? Plans, budgets, targets. Let's talk. Mpumelelo Mkabela, thank you so much for coming through on the Politbureau this morning. Let's call up this. Let me just show you the headline from the Daily Dispatch yesterday. And I think it sort of aptly captures the sense of outrage that South Africans are feeling about this situation. Look at that. Dear Angie, why? With a big question mark. You saw in that clip there the comments from the Minister of Basic Education, Angie Motshekga, about the plans that they have. She says that if our plan is to eradicate all pit latrines by 2025, it means by 2019 we won't have achieved this. Is a headline like that and the kind of outrage that's associated with it, is it fair at all, given the realities within which government operates?
The outrage is justifiable. The problem is that even notwithstanding the outrage and notwithstanding the commitments, the task teams, the new deadlines and all of that, for as long as no one is held to account, for as long as no one is made to pay the price for this loss of lives in this manner, nothing will change. You can have a new minister tomorrow, you can have a new president tomorrow, you can have a new MEC for education, you can have new norms, and you can do all these kind of things. But as long as no one is held to account, for as long as no one stands in court for a charge of culpable homicide, or for as long as no one loses their job for having done that, for having presided over the murder of these kids, nothing will change.
But Mpumelelo, how do you describe it as a murder when the minister gives you the sense of the difficult balancing act where you have limited resources and the challenges are unlimited? You know, it does mean that you cannot solve the problems in one go.
But what she's not saying is that how much money is returned to the national treasury that could not be spent by the provincial governments. Money that is meant to basically deal with the same questions of human dignity, to deal with these kinds of pit latrines that have killed these kids. So why is money being returned to treasury? So people should be held to account for failing to spend. People should be held to account for failing to manage provincial budgets. People should be held to account for having allowed these kinds of things to happen. For as long as that is not happening, we are not going to see any changes, unfortunately. You're going to have shifting of goalposts, blame shifting and all of that. And I must remind you, Tulas, that you remember that during President Thabo Mbeki's time, there was a whole big issue of mud schools, right? I was at the city press at the time, and we exposed that actually, you know, so many years after democracy, they will still have children learning under trees, under mud schools and all of that. And the president was so shocked that he actually, during his State of the Nation address, acknowledged the problem, gave provincial heads of provincial departments new deadlines to say, by this date, I don't want mud schools. I can tell you this, few months later, more mud schools were unearthed by the media. So now we're having the same problems, just because I think last time, no one was held to account during, after missing the deadline that President Thabo Mbeki had set. You're going to have the same problem now if no one is held to account.
Sure, and you raise an interesting point, because the new president now, Cyril Ramaphosa, has now given the Minister of Basic Education and the Director General and heads of department of the 9 provinces 3 months to come back to him with a plan that is costed, that will show how much it will cost to eradicate these unsafe systems of sanitation. What does this mean? Can Cyril Ramaphosa succeed where his predecessors have failed, particularly in this key issue that sort of doesn't put his government in a good light?
It depends on his approach to leadership. Is his approach to leadership plans, meetings, targets, budgets, realignments, rhetoric, or his style of leadership is you must account? Why haven't you done that? You know, let's hold you to account. What price can you pay for having failed to do that? If that is his kind of leadership, then he's going to make an impact. But people are asking themselves, you know, ordinary people are asking them, why must the issue of human dignity be subject to kind of bureaucratic, you know, red tape? Why must it be subject to kind of whims? You know, it's almost as if the lives of ordinary people depends on the whim of some bureaucrat somewhere, of some politician somewhere. The issue of human dignity is a constitutional right. It was never supposed to be subject to the whims of individuals or their attitude to governance. It's non-negotiable, if you put it that way.
Mpumelelo, you talk about the issue of bureaucracy, subjecting human dignity to a bureaucratic process. Government now is doing an audit and says they will come back to the president within 3 months. And they were all very confident, the various heads of the education departments in the provinces. Yeah. Why are we even having an audit in 2018? Shouldn't we be sitting right now with a situation where we know exactly how many pit latrines we have around the country at schools and how much it would cost? I'm baffled. I don't want to lie. I'm actually baffled.
Before an audit was called for now, what the president should have done was that, did the minister know that there was a pit latrine in Bizana? And if she knew, what did she do about it? You must be very specific and precise when you hold people to account. Because now they are going to this brand, you know, grand scheme, big schemes, you know, new plans, new operational models, new budgeting and all of that. The question is, did she know that there was that pit latrine that was unhygienic, that was very dangerous to the health of the kids, and of course deadly, as we now know? And if she knew, what did she do about it? If she did not know, Why didn't she know about it?
Final quick question, and I'm probably going to get into trouble in terms of time, but we always come back to this, Mpumelelo, where we compare budgets.
Yeah.
And people always say, oh, come on, guys, it doesn't work that way. Where we say, this week we heard that the budget for VIP protection is going to go over R1 billion for the first time, I think the figure is. And you hear that, you know, we have a State of the Nation address which goes with pomp and fanfare and ceremony in Cape Town. It's followed by 9 states of the province with as much pomp and fanfare. We spend money on those things, VIP protection, when there are no toilets, something as basic as toilets. We we were told last week or early this week, at least 15 million rand on the, you know, the legal costs of the former president, Jacob Zuma. Is that comparison fair to say, what does it say about us, where as a society where we put our money?
Well, it's a fair comparison, and it's not a comparison that's based on the fact that you don't need VIPs or that. It's a moral judgment that society has to make, and and you can't blame society for making that moral comparison. It's the same as when President Jacob Zuma built this Nkandla home. People were bound to ask, but there are people who live in shacks. Why would the president build himself a house that worth so much, that takes so much from the government purse? We often hear ministers who stay in hotels for a prolonged period. We had Bongo, the former intelligence state security minister, who stayed in a hotel and he was paying 7,000 rand a day. People are bound to ask, but if you have got the situation of Michael Komape in Limpopo and the situation of Lumka in Bizana in the Eastern Cape, morally, where do we sit as a society? And the conclusion you can reach is that we seem to have gone off the moral rail.
All right, Mpumelelo, let's hold it there for a moment and take a quick break. And after the break, efforts to meet the most basic needs of millions of South Africans, including building much-needed proper toilets at schools, would be helped a great deal if the revenue collector was functioning properly. But getting SARS to that point is proving a challenge for the new president.